Before we begin, I want to let everyone know that this is a true story. Not a single detail has been fabricated. During my first year of middle school, I developed a bit of a reputation as a wild child, and I've had several run-ins with our school's resource officer. One day when I was at home watching TV in the living room with my sister, someone rang the doorbell. This startled my younger sister because our parents weren't home. I was the oldest of 4 children, and despite my rebellious nature, I was still the big sister. I wasn't too worried about someone at our door because I figured it was probably the mailman, or one of those annoying solicitors, or perhaps it was our neighbor checking in on us. I went to the door and politely asked, "Who is it?"
"Open up. It's the police."
A man's voice responded. By the way, our door had no peephole. That's a whole other story. But I could tell there was something off about this man's voice. It seemed cold and detached. I turned to my sister. "I don't know if this guy's really a cop. Go upstairs and go check on Jason and Ashley. I'll handle this." She darted up the stairs. The guy on the other side of the door began asking for somebody by name, claiming that they lived there. "I think you got the wrong place. No one by that name lives here."
"Well, I have a warrant that says otherwise. Are you lying to me, young lady?"
"No, the guy that you're looking for doesn't live here."
"Then who just ran up the stairs?"
This immediately creeped me out. There was a long window by the front door. It had one of those thick frost layerings. It wasn't easy to tell who was inside if you were on the outside looking through it. But it didn't look like he was standing in front of the window. So when did he take a look? He would have had to focus real hard to see my sister, because there were no lights on. Furthermore, it was midday, so it should have looked completely dark from where he was. I automatically felt threatened. Whoever this man was had crossed into creep territory. So now I was going to be a jerk. "It was my sister, and she's obviously not the grown man that you're looking for."
"Why did she run?"
"Because you're a fucking weirdo."
"Excuse me, you don't talk to a police officer like that."
The way he said that sounded like he was becoming annoyed, like I should just trust him on his word alone. "Well, if you are a cop, you're not a very good one, because you're at the wrong address. And how do I even know that you are a cop?"
"You should just open the door and see for yourself."
That's when I saw my sister peeking around the corner at the top of the steps. "Get back," I whispered. We rarely get people at our door when my parents aren't home, but it's not impossible. I had this habit of locking the screen door. It was very strong for a screen door as well. And to clarify, it was one of those screen doors directly outside of the front door. Our front porch was open. I figured I would take the risk and open the door, just to see if this man was really a cop. When I opened up, the man on the porch did look like a cop. His hand was on his gun, and he kept looking behind me as if he was searching for something. His behavior made me trust him even less. He began grilling me about my sister, trying to catch me in a lie. "Okay, so who really ran up those stairs?" "It was my sister. I already told you. How do I know it's your sister and not the person I'm looking for?" "Look, you have the wrong address." The man glared at me through his aviators. It was hard to see his face because of how big they were. It was like he was trying to hide his face. I know it's a silly thought for a kid, but my mom and I watched tons of true crime shows together. I know it was stupid to open the door, but I had this sinking feeling that he knew that we were alone. Up to this point, he did not ask for my parents, not even once. I just wanted to keep him in sight, because I knew my parents would be home soon. The cop explained to me that the man he was looking for lived at our house, and according to his paperwork, this was still his current address. I informed the cop that we had been living here for a few years now. and I knew for a fact the woman before us lived here alone. This frustrated him, and he informed me in a demanding tone that he was going to check the house himself. No you're not. Young lady, you're interfering with police business. Now open up the door before you get in trouble. I'm not stupid. I know that you need special court papers to come inside. I was in a stubborn mood, and nobody wins against me when I'm in a stubborn mood. Unless, of course, you're my parents. Cop or not, this man wasn't coming inside the house, or going anywhere near my siblings. That's when he demanded to speak to my parents for the first time. Where are your parents? I want to speak to them about your behavior. He was trying to use the get me into trouble tactic to frighten me. In reality, my mom was far scarier than him. He would have been afraid of my mom because she's the type to kick someone's ass and then ask questions later. But she doesn't play around when it comes to her kids. She wouldn't assault or threaten a police officer, but he would have been in for it, because my mom would have unleashed a verbal onslaught. Full-blown Karen mode. Level 10. My parents aren't here right now. They're at the grocery store. I had a feeling that he already knew my parents weren't home. Up until then, he hadn't asked for them. I didn't know if he was a cop or not, but I didn't want to aggravate him further by telling him a lie. I know that my behavior was annoying, but I wasn't going to give him a reason to call me a liar. That's when he reached for the screen door and tried to open it. That's when he discovered it was locked. Open the damn door! I said no. I then slammed the door shut so he couldn't ask me again. I snuck halfway up the stairs and listened. He began yanking and tugging on the screen door.
Little bitch, I should arrest you and teach you a lesson.
After that, he just walked through our neighbor's yard like nothing happened. That's when I realized that I never saw any cop cars in our driveway. We lived in town homes, so I could see all the vehicles from a distance, and I didn't spot a single cruiser parked nearby. My parents showed up almost right after he left. I told my mom what happened. Well, you shouldn't have opened the door, and you should have called me right away. What's the matter with you? You're grounded. Now come help me with the groceries. I couldn't help but notice that our neighbors checked on us far more often after this incident, and our parents got us a babysitter whenever they left the house without us. I'm not 100% sure, but something tells me that that man who came to the house wasn't a cop, and I would have put my family in danger by allowing him inside. To everyone listening, teach your kids that a uniform is just not enough. You should ask for their badge number and call the police station to verify if you can. It also doesn't hurt to invest in a strong, sturdy screen door.
This took place back in 2015 when I was much younger. It was the only time that I used a dating app. I was single and decided to give one a try. I don't even recall which one it was, but when I went on, I matched with the guy pretty quickly. We started talking, and based on his picture and the start of the conversation, things were going well. The guy's name was Derek, and he appeared to be tall, strong, and had blondish hair. We chatted about basic stuff, getting to know each other a little bit. After about a day and a half of this conversation, he asked me to hang out. Now, I did think this was maybe a bit soon, but I was kind of bored and didn't really have anything going on. I felt like being spontaneous and doing something, but looking back, I was just immature and dumb. I thought, why not? And I said yes. Derek then said that I should come over to his place that same day. Now, this is when I got a slight feeling that maybe it was a bad idea. Even back then, I knew it was probably smart to meet somebody for the first time in a public location, but I really felt confident that I knew him, even though we hadn't sent any pictures back and forth to each other or called each other on the phone. I said okay, and he sent me his address and told me to come over soon. He said that he was bored and not doing much. He said that we could watch a movie and order pizza or something. I told him that that sounded good, and that I was only going to stay for a couple of hours at most though. It was probably like 7 or 8 p.m. at this point in time. So I got ready and then copied his address and pasted it into Google Maps for directions. The location was about 10 minutes away and across town. His address was typical numbers and then a street name and zip code. I followed the direction and it led me to a quiet-looking street that was pretty dark. Then I was told to turn right, and I did, but was very confused. I was turning into the parking lot of a small rundown-looking motel. Instantly, I was both angry and scared. Why was Derek telling me to meet him in a creepy motel? He told me I was going to his place. I wanted to just turn around and leave, and I should have. Instead, I pulled into one of the parking lot spaces facing the motel. There was 2 floors of the motel and probably about 20 rooms in total, roughly 10 on each level. The parking lot was basically one long row of spaces facing the motel rooms, and then there was a sidewalk in between. There were about 5 other cars in the parking lot, so not many people were staying there. After parking my car, I looked at the rooms and saw lights appear to be on in a few, but not many. There was also curtains covering just about every window. I stayed in my car, took out my phone, and texted Derek on the dating app. I said, "You didn't tell me you were at a motel." He said he was sorry, and claimed that he didn't want to scare me off, but really wanted to see me. He then said that he was only staying in the motel for a couple of days until he could start the lease for his new apartment. He also claimed that all of his stuff was at a nearby storage unit, and his last apartment lease ended sooner than he thought it would. It was a complicated mess of texts, but I understood his basic point. He was just staying there while he moved from one apartment to another. I sort of believed him because he had been so nice to that point, although that was probably foolish of me. I told him that I was a bit creeped out and the motel seemed really sketchy. He said he knew that, but it was all he could afford given the situation of his rent and deposit on his upcoming apartment. He then asked me to please come inside and told me the number of his motel room. I looked at it, and it was one of the few with lights on, and it was on the ground level a little ways to my left. I sat there in my car, thinking about it for a minute. I told myself that the fear I had was more than likely nothing. It was natural to feel creeped out by an old motel like this. I didn't reply to Derek, but after I sat in my car thinking about it, I decided to go in. The story he gave me seemed believable. I opened my door and stepped out. When I shut my door and was beginning to walk, something caught my eye from a motel window. I looked over to see a guy looking out of the window of Derek's motel room, but it wasn't Derek. After less than 1 second, whoever this guy was quickly ducked down and covered the window back up with the curtain. Even though I saw him very briefly, I knew for a fact that it wasn't Derek. He looked absolutely nothing like the picture. I assumed that somebody was there with him. I stopped where I was and got out my phone. I texted him asking, "Who's inside the room with you?" He responded quickly saying, "Nobody, I'm here by myself." The bad feeling I had got worse, and I knew that I needed to leave. I quickly walked back to my car and then got inside. I told Derek that I saw somebody in his window that wasn't him. He said something like, "No you didn't, come on in already." I had already made up my mind at that point that I was going to leave though. I got back inside of my car and drove away. I went back home and then blocked Derek. I realized how lucky I was not to enter that motel. After looking back at that situation, I also realized how stupid I was. I'm glad that I was able to learn from it. I really don't know if that was a catfish, and the person that I saw was pretending to be Derek, or if he had someone else in the room with him. I'm guessing it was a catfish, but either way, that was my worst experience using a dating app. I have a really crazy story from a while back. It was a few years ago now, but I'm a female, age 23, and was 21 at the time. I was on Tinder and matched with this guy who I will call Ryan for the story. After matching, Ryan and I began talking and hit it off pretty well, but that was really only the first night. The next day, when chatting with him, I realized that he was sort of a jerk. He said a few things that were kind of rude, and overall, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. He asked me for my Snapchat, and at that point, I told him no. This frustrated him a little, and he replied saying that I was making a mistake and some other stuff as well. But he then said that we should go on a date the next night. It took me by surprise, and I said, "Really?" He then gave me a time and location for the date, which was at a nearby bar, I think. After he said that, I ignored him and did not reply. I figured that he would get the idea and move on. But the next day, he sent me another message saying, "I will see you tonight," or something like that. I thought about saying, "No, you won't," but I didn't. Instead, I continued to ignore him. He didn't say anything else until that night. He sent a text on Tinder saying, "Where are you?" I figured that he was joking, but still did not reply to him. There was a text later saying, "Why didn't you show up?" I was thinking to myself, did this guy really go out on a date and expect me to show up? He just said that we were going. I never once told him that I would go with him. The next day, he sent one final message on Tinder which said, "I'm going to find you." After that, I blocked him. I couldn't believe that I even matched with this guy in the first place anymore. So during this time, I lived in a house that I was renting with a roommate. It was smaller and had only 2 bedrooms, but we each had our own room. The very next night after that, I was home by myself as my roommate was at work. I was on my bed, just messing around on my phone. It was like 11 o'clock at night or something, and all of a sudden, I heard this noise. It sounded like it was coming from outside, like the bush next to the window was moving. My window was covered by a blanket from the inside, and it was only a few feet away from me. I got out of bed and then went over to the window. I lifted the blanket and instantly saw a man sort of crouched down next to the bush, like 3 feet away. I jumped back and was really freaked out by this. It was probably the last thing that I was expecting to see. Afterwards, maybe 10 seconds later, I heard a noise from the window. The guy was knocking on it. I reached for my phone and hit 911 as fast as I could. I heard more noises at the window, but couldn't see what was happening. After dialing, I ran out of my bedroom and headed down the hallway for the living room. When I was leaving my room and going through the doorway, I heard a loud bang from the window. He might have been trying to break it or something. I don't know. I told the 911 operator that I thought somebody may be trying to break into my house. When I was in the living room, I felt slightly safer, but not by much. I tried to get as far away from the bedroom as possible. I was told that police were on their way. I went over to one of the front windows, pulled back a curtain for a second, and looked out of it. When I did, I saw that the guy was still there and outside. He was at my same bedroom window, standing up, and I'm not sure what he was doing, but I kept watching him. And he then turned, and he saw me for a split second through the window. As he started to move, I closed the curtains and moved away. I ran to my bathroom and locked myself inside of it. There, I waited until the police arrived. I couldn't really hear much from inside, but if the guy broke in, I think I would have heard that. Eventually, the cops got there. When they did, I came out of my bathroom, ran for the front door, and let them in. But when I did, I was told that they had caught a guy in my backyard. He was the same man who I had matched with on Tinder. I guess he had been at one of my back windows now. I don't know what his plan was. I really can't believe that it all happened. After that, I deleted Tinder. I hope if anybody who hears this uses dating apps, they're very careful. This is something that happened a few years ago. I buy things on eBay here and there, and have been doing so for years. I like to collect things like sports memorabilia, and occasionally I bid on auctions. One time, I saw this autographed football that was signed by one of my favorite players. It had 0 bids, and the starting bid was pretty low. I expected it to go way up, but I entered my maximum bid and then moved on, thinking maybe I had a shot at winning it. The auction still had several days left. Over the next few days, I actually forgot all about it. Then, I got a notification that I had won the auction and I could pay for the signed ball now. When I looked, I couldn't believe it. Not one single other person had bid on the ball, and I had won. I don't remember the exact price. I think it was maybe like $10. I was probably worth a lot more, maybe over $50. I was really excited and paid the money. The very next night, though, I was at home when my phone rang. During this time, I had a landline phone that I had for years. I did not recognize the number on the caller ID, so I didn't answer it. What followed shortly after was a message. A man's voice came onto my answering machine, and he said that he was trying to reach me and mentioned my name. He said that I had won his auction for the football, and unfortunately nobody else bid on it. Then he said that I was getting way too good of a deal, and it wasn't fair at all, but he was going to do me a favor and mail it anyways. He went on to say that he expects me to leave him a very good review after this. Now, this rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like how he called me up on my personal phone to say this. I won his auction fair and square. If he didn't want the risk of somebody paying $10 for it, then he shouldn't have started the bidding so low. He knew the risks. I went on eBay and looked at some other listings of the same player's autograph on a football. They were going for a little over $50, so the guy lost out on about $40. It's not that big of a deal. Just 2 days later, I received the football in the mail. It was fast shipping, because I guess the guy lived in the same state as me. After receiving the football, it was packaged well and just how it looked online. I went on eBay to leave the good review that the seller wanted so badly. To be honest, I really didn't want to leave him a good review after what he did. It kind of annoyed me. But when I logged into eBay, I noticed that he had already left me a negative review. On eBay, sellers and buyers can leave each other reviews. You can leave it positive, negative, or neutral. This affects your feedback, and people are less likely to buy or sell to you if you have a bad rating. Mine had been perfect to that point, and his was pretty good. I think it was like 99% positive. His negative review of me said, "Buyer got way too good of a deal." Clearly, he was upset about it, but I did not feel that it was fair for him to leave me a bad review. What was I supposed to do? I bid and I won. Did he expect me to offer to pay more for no reason? It angered me that he left me a bad review, so I left him a bad review. I said what happened. I said, "I won the auction from this seller for a good deal." He then called my home phone complaining and demanded that I leave him a good review. He sent me a message after this, which I ignored. I didn't even open it. Then, the next day, he called me again. I didn't answer, and he left another message. This one was very angry. He berated me for about 3 minutes straight. I didn't even listen to the whole thing and deleted it, but this didn't stop him. He called me again several times the next day. I got frustrated, and luckily I had call blocker installed on my landline. I blocked his number so that he would finally stop bothering me. For several days, everything was fine. But then, one night, I was at home, and out of nowhere got a knock on my front door. I walked down to the front door, but before opening it, looked outside. It was a man who I did not recognize. I didn't know why he would be here. I answered the door, and the man standing there mentioned my name and asked if that was me. I said yes. He then told me that he sold me a football on eBay not long ago. As soon as I heard that, I slammed the door right in his face. This caused him to start aggressively banging on my door. I yelled at him to go away or I was calling the cops. He was yelling and demanding that I give him the ball back, saying that I scammed him. I couldn't believe this guy. I'm not sure if he was really just mad about the ball at this point, or if he was just mad at me. He kept standing there and knocking on my door every so often. After he didn't leave for over 10 minutes, I called the police on him. When they arrived about 10 minutes after that, the man was still there. They spoke with him, and he gave his side of the story, which I'm not even sure what that was. An officer came inside and spoke to me, and said that the man outside kept claiming that I scammed him and stole his autographed football. I told the officer the whole story, and I showed him eBay proof on my phone. After a while, the police ruled in favor of me. They said that the transaction was fair and I owned the football. They told the man that he had to leave my property and told him not to come back. Eventually, the man agreed and left. After that, I never heard from him again. I still have the football, and every time I look at it, I laugh when I remember the crazy story that goes with it. Several months ago, I sold my PlayStation 5 on eBay. My friend was getting rid of his PS5 for an Xbox, so he sold it to me for a really good price. His PlayStation 5 was a little bit nicer than the version that I had, so I decided to sell mine. I listed it for a good price on eBay as a buy it now rather than an auction. Somebody bought it after just 2 days, and the very next day, I packaged it up really good and shipped it. I sent it to the address that was given from the eBay account that bought it from me. Now, 3 days after I shipped the PlayStation, and 4 days after it was sold, I got a message on eBay from the buyer. He told me that he recently moved and forgot to put his new address on his eBay account. Then he asked me that I ship it to his new address instead. I responded and told him that I already shipped the PlayStation several days ago and that it was too late. The guy freaked out, saying that I should give him a refund because he wasn't going to get it. I told him that he should have realized that, either before he bought it or within the first day. What was I supposed to do? Sit around waiting for his blessing for me to ship it? I mean, normally, people want things shipped as fast as possible after they buy it. He said that he was going to report me to eBay, But that didn't really scare me because I knew I had done nothing wrong. I told the guy that the package will have his name on it, so he should either go to his old address and pick it up, or contact whoever now lives there and ask them to send it to him. In my mind, that was a very logical solution. Obviously, if it was at the wrong address, there was a chance that somebody would steal it, but I mailed it in a box where it wasn't obvious that it was a PS5. The guy did not seem to think my ideas were good. He just told me that he needed a refund, and he kept threatening me, saying that he would have my eBay account banned. I told him that I wasn't going to refund him. Over the next few days, the guy kept harassing me, sending me messages. He kept saying that I had to give him a refund. He really wanted the money, but I wasn't going to give it to him. I just ignored him. So about a week later, I was looking at some of the messages that he sent me, and I decided to look him up, just for the heck of it. His username seemed to be his actual name. It was a first name, an underscore, and then a last name and a bunch of numbers. The last name was somewhat unique sounding, so I thought that I might be able to find him. I wanted to know what this guy looked like that was harassing me so much. I went onto Facebook and entered his name. Just one result came up, and it was a younger looking man. His page was public, so I could see everything that he posted and stuff, and he was quite active. I scrolled down just a little bit and saw a post that nearly blew my mind. He had posted a picture of a PlayStation 5 with the caption, "Just got this bad boy in the mail. Hit me up if you want to play some COD." The PlayStation looked just like the one that I had sold, and it was dated just 3 days after I had mailed the PlayStation, and the very same day that the guy told me that he had the wrong address. This guy was totally trying to scam me. It was a pretty bad attempt too, to be honest. I screenshotted the post and then sent it to him on eBay. The guy claimed that it wasn't him. Then he backtracked and said that it was his friend's PS5, not his. Then he backtracked again and called me a curse word. After that, I never heard from him again. This happened when I was a teenager, many years ago. I was with my best friend Tony, and we were at my house. My parents were gone someplace, I don't remember where. Tony and I had been best friends for many years, and were like brothers. We liked to prank our friends a lot, and things like that. On this night that we were hanging out, Tony had the idea to prank phone call one of our friends. This was back before everybody had smartphones. Cell phones were around, but didn't have the capabilities that they do today. So we were going to call our friend Adam, and Tony had a whole joke that he was going to say to him. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was probably really stupid. So we dialed Adam's number on one of the home phones at my house. It rang a few times, and then who we thought was Adam picked up. Tony started going into his joke and wasn't stopping. After he had spoke for like a minute straight, the person on the other end spoke. It was a man, but not Adam. It sounded like an adult, and I think we were about 14. The guy was really mad. I don't recall exactly what he said, but he was asking us who was calling and what was wrong with us and things like that. When we realized that it wasn't Adam, we were both surprised and also embarrassed. Tony just hung up the phone when the guy was still talking. Then we had a good laugh about it, but we decided not to call Adam anymore. That was enough prank phone calls for us. Instead, we decided to play video games. Just moments after hanging up though, the phone started ringing. We did not have caller ID, so I answered it not knowing who was calling us, although I think we both had a feeling that it might be the guy who we had just accidentally dialed. I picked up the phone and answered. I heard the same guy speaking, and he still sounded angry. I hung up on him, and then he called again right after. This time though, we did not answer the phone. We started playing video games at that point, and over the next 30 minutes or so, the guy called back several more times. At least we assumed that it was him. But each time, we didn't answer and just let it ring. Then, finally, we didn't get any more calls. We continued to game until probably about an hour after the call. That's when there was a knock at the front door. I was confused when I heard it. I lived in a pretty typical neighborhood, but knocks on the door at night were very unusual. We were in my bedroom, and I left the room and walked out into the living room. I got over to the front door and looked out of the window. Some guy was standing there who I didn't know. He looked right at me as I was looking at him. I moved away from the door and he knocked again. I I went back to my room and told Tony that some guy was there. Then the phone rang again. We were both wondering if there was any possibility that it could be the same guy, so we answered the phone call this time. The man spoke, and he told us to come outside. When I heard that, I instantly hung up the phone again. Now the man must have been calling from his cell phone. He knocked on the door again, and we both went out into the living room. We heard him yell for us to come outside. The guy appeared to be in his 50s maybe, and was wearing a baseball cap and a jacket. That's all I remember about him. We didn't answer the door though. He stayed there for several more minutes before finally leaving. After that, Tony and I were just waiting for the phone to ring again, or for the guy to come back, but thankfully he never did. After that, we never prank phone called anybody else. I think the guy that we called must have had caller ID. He could have looked up our address by finding it in the phone book or something. I really don't know, but that's my best guess. It still creeps me out that he actually showed up at my house. This happened just a few months ago. I live alone in a house in what I would describe as an average neighborhood. One night, I was by myself and in the living room, just relaxing and watching TV. It was 11 o'clock at night. That's when I heard my phone vibrate, the specific vibration it does when I receive a text. I was curious, and I picked up my phone to look. When I did, I saw that a new number that I didn't know had texted me. The text said, "Hey, I'm outside." This seemed bizarre right off the bat. I figured right away that it was a wrong number, and I thought about replying, but I didn't end up doing it. I just tossed my phone aside and forgot about it. But maybe just 10 minutes later or so, I was watching TV, but thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. My living room is at the front left side of the house. There's a side window looking to outside, and some bushes are by it. Something moved out there, so I looked over. I saw what looked like a person walking past the window, but I saw no details about them because it was dark out and a long ways away. In fact, I only saw them for about a split second. I wasn't even 100% sure about it. Maybe I was just being paranoid, but it looked like somebody passed by the window. Now I suddenly started thinking about the text again. Could it not have been just a wrong number, but somebody actually at my house? Who would be here though, and why? I had no clue. I decided then to text the number back and ask them who they were. When I did, they responded rather quickly, probably less than a minute later. This text said, "Come outside and see." Now I was really creeped out. I had a feeling that somebody was outside of my house for some reason. I got up from the couch and looked out of the front window. My front yard appeared empty. I closed the shades. Then I went all around to different windows in the house. I went to the sides and the back as well, but everywhere I looked, I saw nothing. Of course, there were several places around the yard where somebody could hide without being seen. I had no idea where this person was. I walked back into my living room, and just as I did, heard a knock coming from one of the back windows. Instantly, I had a bad feeling about it. I walked back over to the dining room, where a window that looked out to the backyard was. Whoever had knocked on the window was now gone. I looked all around back there, but saw nothing. I then went back into the living room and texted the person back, asking them why they were at my house. The person texted back quickly once again. This time they said, "Come outside and I will show you, or do I have to break in?" I texted back saying that I was calling the police. Then I proceeded to do so. I told the 911 operator that somebody was threatening to break into my house, and I had reason to believe that they were on my property. I was told that officers would be there in a few minutes. Then I just waited and hoped that the person wouldn't actually try to break in. Meanwhile, I wasn't getting any more texts from the number. I thought about texting them again, but decided not to. Only like 5 minutes later, the police arrived. I saw the cars out front, and I went outside and talked to them. They searched my property and all around my house, but unfortunately, they didn't locate anyone. But as the police were still there, I got another text from the number. It said, "I can see the police there, LOL." I showed it to the police, and they looked around the street a little, but couldn't see anyone. They looked around for probably 20 more minutes. The person was never found. After that, they left. I was really creeped out by this, but luckily and surprisingly, I didn't get any more texts. I also didn't see any more creepy things outside. Looking back, I still don't know who it was. Sometimes I think that maybe it was one of my neighbors. That seems sort of far-fetched though. I still wonder about it. I'm a female and my name is Jessica. This occurred 2 years ago now. One day I got a new text on my phone and it said, "Hey, is this Jessica?" I didn't know who it was, but it possibly could have been somebody that I knew. I responded saying yes and asked who it was that was texting me. The person said that his name was JT and that was it. I didn't know a JT, and I tried to think of anybody that I knew with those initials. I couldn't think of anyone though. I texted back saying, "Do I know you?" JT responded by asking if he could come over. This was getting weirder and weirder. So I texted back this JT guy and asked him how he knew me. When I said that, he didn't respond. I was very confused by this whole thing. So clearly, this guy had the right number and knew who I was, but I had no clue as to who he was. I worked in the city and lived in a pretty populated area about 10 minutes away. I saw lots of people on a daily basis, but I was positive that I did not know this guy. And it was kind of weird that he seemed to know who I was. After he didn't answer my question to how he knew me, it was even more suspicious. So after that, I blocked him. I didn't hear from him for the rest of the night. The next day, I got up and went to work as usual. Like I said, I worked in the city, so I would park my car on the street and then walk to the office. Everything was going normal for the workday. When it got to be about an hour or so until I was off, I checked my phone. There was another new text on it from a different new number. This text said, "Why did you block me?" Of course, I knew who this was right away. It had to be that JT guy. I asked him why he kept texting me. JT said that he had been trying to text me and nothing was going through. Then he realized that he was blocked. He said that he just wanted to talk to me. Then he said, "I'm waiting for you at your car right now. I know you get off of work soon." He was right, but how did he know this? I had no clue. I blocked this number as well. I was hoping that it was some sort of crazy joke or something, but I knew that likely it wasn't. When I got off of work that day, I left the office and was very careful. What if this JT guy actually was at my car and still there? I walked back to my car, which took just a few minutes. I got within view of it, but was still a long ways away. There was this man standing near it on the sidewalk. I stopped where I was and kept watching him. I was trying to determine whether this was just some random guy or if it was JT. The guy wasn't walking away and just looking around. I did not recognize him. Then he looked over into my direction and I saw him make eye contact with me. I looked away, but then I saw him start to walk over to me. He was a long ways away, but I knew that I needed to get out of there. I started walking down the sidewalk in the opposite direction as quickly as I could. I made it a few blocks and then saw a grocery store and walked inside of it. I was hoping that JT hadn't seen me go in. There was a decent amount of people out walking on the sidewalks and stuff, so there was a chance he didn't. I walked around in the grocery store for a few minutes looking around. I wasn't really sure what to do. I was hoping not to see JT anywhere. But then I saw a police officer who just happened to be inside of the grocery store. I approached the officer and told him about my situation. He said that he could walk to my car with me and see if JT was still out there. So we left the grocery store and I kept my eyes out for JT, but we didn't see him at all. Thankfully, I made it back to my car safely and then was able to drive home. I was glad that I made it back. However, JT had still gotten away and still knew where I worked. I just hoped that he didn't know where I lived. I lived in an apartment up on the 5th floor during this time. It was a pretty typical one-bedroom place. That night, at about 10 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I knew who it was right away. It had to be JT. I instantly took out my phone and called the police. I didn't even bother to look out the peephole or anything. I was that confident. A few minutes later, he knocked on the door again. I didn't answer. Then I got yet another text on my phone. This was from another new number. It said, "Open up the door. I know you're home." I didn't reply to it. I just hoped that the police would get there soon and that JT would not try to break in. About 10 minutes went by. I was in my bedroom, listening closely for any sounds. JT didn't knock anymore or anything. I figured that he probably left, but suddenly I heard some voices from the hallway. I realized that the police must have arrived. I went to the door and looked out, and sure enough, they were there. But JT was also there. He was talking to them, and they got him to go away. I also got a restraining order against him, and thankfully, after that night, I haven't seen him since. I also haven't received any more texts from him.